Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is John Walter. I'm a solutions architect at Red Hat. I cover the training and certification organization. Today we're going to be talking about how you can train using our online learning modalities. Obviously this is a interesting time. A lot of our customers are moving to work from home over who knows the next few months. So we are still committed to equipping teams with the knowledge and the skill set. And Red Hat has a lot to offer in that regard. So just to start with, I wanted to kind of level set, right? Why is training important? I think everyone probably on this webinar knows that training is important, but maybe they don't understand quite how important it is, right? So, we did a survey about a year and a half ago, really just asking about what is stopping you in your digital transformation. And really that's talking about container adoption, moving towards microservices, AI machine learning, moving towards the edge, right? And IT talent skills gaps were the biggest blocker within that survey. And, part of that is a problem of, your existing system administrators, your architects, they don't have experience with a lot of these products that are going to move towards containerized workloads, working with a public, private, hybrid cloud. Teams aren't equipped with those skills. And so talent gap is a really big thing. And so looking at this sort of secondary slide here really kind of puts it into more perspective, right? New skills are going to be one of the most important success factors for actually adopting all these new technologies, right? Definitely, which cloud do we move to? Some of the technical aspects of that are obviously going to be as or more important, but teams need to start looking for talent that already exists out there, or start upskilling the talent that they already have in-house. And so at Red Hat, we actually have kind of three pronged approach for this, right? You can rent the talent. It's going through our consultants and bringing a consultant on site to help to drive that transformation. But what we're seeing most commonly is that teams are more interested in building the talent or buying the talent. And so that means going out there and finding people who already have the skill set and bringing them on, or enabling their current team of probably existing talented technical folks, but equipping them with the skills to move towards this new paradigm. And so that's where Red Hat training and certification comes in. We're part of that build and buy aspect, right? There are going to be loads of certified professionals out there that have experience in things like OpenShift or deploying to a multi-hybrid cloud. And we have the ability to take your existing team and upskill them. So we'll talk about some of the various options that we have in that regard. We really have a few different modalities. I think our most commonly known is going into a classroom with an instructor, being there physically with them coming to you if you have a large enough organization. Obviously, in times like this, that's not really possible. Travel is going to be especially restrictive, not just for you and your team, but for Red Hatters as well. We're really not able to send instructors on site anymore like we would like to. So we're having to pivot to some of our other modalities. And these are things that we've been doing all along, but they're not always seen as the most preferential, right? So what options do we have? We still have instructor-led training as an option, right? We have public classrooms that you can enroll in, and it's delivered virtually. So essentially you get into a screen share with one of our instructors, and they're going to walk you through the course the same way and deliver it the same way that they would if you were on site with them. We still provide lab access. If you aren't familiar with our curriculum, maybe I should take a step back. If you aren't familiar with our curriculum and the way that it's structured, it's all hands-on, right? So we'll actually get into a demo of one of these courses in a little bit, but let's say you are brand new to RHEL, you wanted to go through one of our system administration courses. Essentially every aspect that we're going to cover, things like user and group management, service management, network management, all of these different components are going to have several labs attached to the actual curriculum. So you're going to have a piece that's going to be lecture portion by one of our instructors, and then you're going to immediately jump into a lab environment to actually test your skills and validate the learning that you've just gotten. So that's one option, right? Virtual public. We also can do virtual private. So we can have an instructor cater to your specific team Private audiences are always great whenever you have 6 or more folks on your team who need to upskill on a certain technology. Public is great whenever you just have a couple people that need to take a course or something like that. Maybe you're interested in certified. But all that's to say is that if instructor-led training is what you are looking for, that Red Hat still has options for you, all virtual, and the content and the experience is going to be identical. Now, apart from that, we understand that you all still have day jobs, right? And while you may be impacted to some extent by having to work from home, maybe you're not working on site, we have the ability to provide self-paced training that, again, is the exact same content, still lab focused, and we can do that in a couple of different ways. And so that's what we're really going to talk about later. Obviously, in the long run, for a lot of teams, the focus for going through these courses is not just to upskill your team, but sometimes you have requirements on certifications. And so, all of these courses, for the most part, are going to map to a certification, potentially multiple certifications. Now, while we're in this kind of shutdown, we aren't going to have the ability to actually proctor those certifications, but we'll talk about, long term, what the need and the purpose of these certification exams is really for, and hopefully forecast in the future a little bit about when you can expect to have those back open. So I've kind of talked about this already, but our instructors, they're certified professionals. They've been working with Red Hat technology specifically for several years. A lot of them come from within Red Hat. Maybe they were in a consulting or an engineering role and wanted to move more towards something a little more hands-on, kind of teaching and mentoring teams, right? As far as courses go, we'll talk about this a little more in depth, but we have about 60 courses that map to each one of our products. So obviously, RHEL is a big footprint within our curriculum. OpenShift, another big part of that, Ansible. But really, we're going to have multiple courses for pretty much every technology and multiple job roles as well. And we'll dive into that in a little bit. I mentioned the delivery options we have, public and private. We can do that virtually, and then self-paced as well. And as far as instructor-led training goes, we've been doing this for a really long time. Our instructors are, like I said, all certified in the technologies that they're teaching. They can typically get a lot deeper than even some of our curriculum will get. Trust me, I've attended plenty of instructor-led training, both virtual and in person. And as any of you that have gone through technical training before, you can definitely understand that sometimes the conversations get a little tangential, right? And so one thing that we really pride ourselves on is our instructors are able to typically guide those conversations, right? One of the benefits of private training is that you can come in and talk about what your specific use cases, what your specific struggles have been with implementing or adopting a new technology. And our instructors have been there before, right? And so they can have those conversations with you, and especially when you start to look at things that are sort of non-standard. A good example would be like creating custom services with System D and RHEL now 7 and RHEL 8. Or implementing custom SE/Linux policies. Those are things that we typically don't cover in our curriculum, but you have the benefit of asking the instructor these questions when you go through instructor-led training, and they're able to answer them. So here you can just kind of see a snapshot. I won't dive too deeply into this, but this is just an overview of all of the courses that we have. This is actually a slightly outdated, this is from September 2019, I want to say. I think that the date at the bottom is actually incorrect, but all that's to say is that no matter if you are responsible on the platform, the RHEL side, or the OpenStack side, if you're really going to be more in that DevOps vertical, things like OpenShift and Ansible, or if you're an application developer, we have loads of courses, again, that map to each of our products within our portfolio. And like I said earlier, they really map to multiple job roles too. So this isn't a case where you're just going to be reliant on the administrative focus courses. With an OpenShift, obviously we know that administration operation is important, but just as important is how you develop and deploy your applications on OpenShift too. So the other modality that we haven't really touched on is online self-paced. And really, we have a couple ways of doing that. So the first one that we'll talk about is our online self-paced when you're only really interested in taking a single course. Really, the benefit there is maybe you are interested in getting certified. Maybe you just want to dip your toe into a specific course. Maybe you have a very specific need and there's really only one course that's going to check that box for you. So what that option gives you, and actually let me jump back a couple slides because this is talking about something else. So we're talking about self-paced training here. And so role is Red Hat Online Learning. Essentially, it's a video classroom, right? So this is where we take the content of the course. We take an HTML version of the course book, and that's what you're getting, right? You're buying access to the course. You're buying lab access as well. And then depending on how you want to deliver it, you can either just go with the video classroom, which is going to be a recording of one of our instructors. You can see one of our instructors, Grega, in this little screenshot here in the top right, actually going through and recording one of our courses. Now, the benefit of a video classroom is just the same as if you were going through a live instructor-led option, right? They're teaching the course. They're not just going through and kind of reading the textbook to you. And they start to go off and show examples that we're not going to cover in the course. That's always a benefit of going through something that's instructor-led, whether it's recorded in our video classroom or live with a virtual instructor. Now, the other option is going through the textbook. Some people just want to go through, they don't need to be talked to them. And that's an option as well. I myself, with some of our REL courses, I'll go through the online learning, so just reading intensive version of the course. But when I get into something that's a little more emerging, I'm not a developer, at least that's not my background. So if I take an OpenShift development course, I'm probably going to watch the video classroom and have somebody kind of explain it to me, and I can always rewind and rewatch. Again, the benefit here doesn't matter which modality that you want to go with, because the course is exactly the same. The lab access and the emphasis on the lab exercises is also still the same. So that's one option, right? The Red Hat Online Learning, it's a single course. You get 90 days access to it. Everything is hosted by us. So all you need is a computer with a decent internet connection, and you're good to go. The other option is sort of that first option, but on steroids, right? And that's our Red Hat Learning subscription. So I'll skip back ahead to this next slide. And so the Red Hat Learning subscription is really how you take those skills to the next level at scale. And again, this is going to be a self-paced option. And so what the learning subscription really offers to you is access to our entire portfolio. And it comes in a few different ways. We'll talk about this a little in depth, what you're seeing here, but really the idea here is that if you're interested in taking a couple of courses, if you're interested in certification, this is really the best option for you from a cost perspective. And in my opinion, really gives you a lot of flexibility, because what the subscription gets you is access to our entire portfolio for an entire year. So, that last option was just going to be 90 days, about 3 months. But let's say things change in 6 months, right? Right now you're focused on becoming a certified system administrator. Maybe you want to take our high performance tuning class, but 6 months down the road, your manager comes and says, hey, we're going to be adopting Ansible, and I need you guys to get up to speed on Ansible as quickly as possible. Well, hey, guess what? We've got 5 different Ansible courses that you already have had access to and can jump right into. And so, especially for teams who are interested in adopting new technologies or interested in becoming certified, the learning subscription, I think, is not just the best value, but is one of the best ways of learning. Now, again, the emphasis here is this is self-paced. So, if you are a manager and thinking about how your team is best using their time, maybe taking them out of the workforce for 4 days to take an instructor-led option isn't the best option. But maybe there's a lot of downtime, and instructor-led is the way that you want to go. And so there's pros and cons to both. What I'm going to demonstrate in just a second is the subscription and the online learning portal. And so you can see, get a sense of both. Really, the online learning is exactly the same experience as what you're going to have inside of the learning subscription, except you just have access to that single course. And a couple of the other features we'll highlight as well, but one of the big ones is that anytime that we have new course curriculum being developed, whether it's an update to a course on a new version, or a brand new course, our HLS subscribers also get early access to that new content. And so, we have a very DevOps centric development model. And so essentially, as chapters of each of these courses move through QA and then to QE and then to our content services team, they get approved and those chapters move straight into early access. And so, our goal is to essentially put new content into early access on a more than a weekly basis, right? We're constantly in development of new courses, and so there should always be content available to you inside that early access. We also provide, pretty fantastic reporting, and this is especially good not just for the individual user, but for managers as well. What it's going to show, and we'll dive a little bit more deeply into this whenever I pull the demo up, is a few different pieces. One is going to be where you are as far as course completion is concerned. A lot of you in the public sector are able to essentially provide proof of completion. And so that's something that you're able to show. We have certificates of completion that are a part of every course after you get to a certain point. It's about 90% progress throughout the course. Now, this is not the same as obviously certifications, which would be a pretty intensive exam that you would need to pass. Besides completion, you're able to see course activity as well. So just which courses you've begun, what your progress is within each of those. And you can also see lab activity. As part of the subscription, you get 400 hours of lab access. So that equates to about 13 or 14 full-length courses. So if any of you are able to take more than that in a calendar year, my hat's off to you. As somebody who essentially is professionally training all the time, I find it very difficult to do that, even though I'm paid to. So 400 hours is typically more than enough for any individual. And another thing I wanted to mention before we jump into the demo is our Red Hat Learning community. Now, this is something that's totally free. You can go to learn.redhat.com, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a community filled with our instructors, with people from our ops teams and our engineering business units, right? So these are the people who are actually contributing to the code. This is a place where you can go and learn. It's also a place where when you're going through one of our courses, maybe you're preparing for an exam, maybe you're struggling with a specific concept, you have the learning community to work with. And again, this is filled with our instructors. It's a really awesome solution, and it's not just unique to those that are going through our courses, but it's definitely something that you as a learner can definitely benefit from. And then a question I get a lot is really, where do I start? We do offer free skills assessments that will help you to kind of target which course to start with, right? Maybe you are somewhat experienced with RHEL, you're interested in certification, but you don't necessarily need to start from ground zero. This skills assessment will help you to really figure out which course or courses would be a good fit for you. And the idea here is that it's about a 15-20 question multiple choice. So this is pretty much the only time that you'll see anything multiple choice of the Red Hat training. And they're all going to be technical questions. So within our system administration skills assessment, you'll see maybe 5 questions that center around user and group management. And maybe one will be, how do you create this user named John with this UID and assign to these supplementary groups? It'll give you 4 options, different commands that are all going to look somewhat the same, but obviously do different things. And so at the end of that skills assessment, you'll be given your results, right? How many questions you have correct. They're all going to be grouped. And then you'll be given some suggestions as to which course or courses would be a good place to start. And here you can kind of see what one of those skills assessment looks like here on the right. And this is something that we do offer on an individual basis and a group skills assessment. So again, for you managers out there, the group skills assessment is somewhere you can go. It generates a link that you can then send out to your team, and then you get the results of those. It'll be a little more detailed on a user-to-user basis, and then you can work with myself or my team to kind of identify and create a learning plan for everybody. Okay, so with that, let me back out and pull up our learning subscription. So here, this is the main page of the learning subscription. You're going to see some pretty important information here at the top. What I have highlighted here. So this is going to be days remaining within the subscription, how many lab hours have been used. As part of the subscription, you do get 10 student guide downloads. So this is the PDF version of the course book. You can do that for 10 different courses. 5 exam vouchers are a part of our standard learning subscription. And then within that are 2 exam retakes. So in the event that you take, let's say, our Red Hat certified system administrator exam, you don't pass the first time, you do have an option to retake that exam as part of the subscription. And then below, you're just going to see a list of all the courses that I'm currently enrolled in. And it's as easy as just clicking into the course to enroll in it. And you'll also see a couple different options here. So for instance, with our Red Hat System Administrator 1 class, that's RH124, you'll see a drop down here that specifies version. So if I click on that, I can switch between RHEL 7 and RHEL 8. And then for most of our courses, you're going to see a video classroom option and an online training option. I touched on this earlier, but video classroom, we've recorded an instructor and they're delivering the course as though you were there in person. And then online training is going to be more reading heavy. There's going to be some videos that are interspersed throughout, but for the most part, you're going to be reading and then jumping into the lab exercises. So some of the other things I wanted to highlight here, obviously our course catalog. One thing that's included inside the learning subscription, and this is the only place where these live, are what we call expert extras or expert seminars. Think of them as sort of briefer TED Talks, right? They're very focused topics that maybe didn't necessarily fit into one of our specific courses, but they're typically going to be supplementary to those courses. So for instance, if I just filter here on the expert extras, I'm going to scroll down to something that I can understand. So there's going to be something like configuring terminal session recording in RHEL 8. So that's a newer feature as part of Cockpit inside of RHEL 8. We don't touch on it inside of any of our core RHEL system administration courses, but there's going to be a video recording by one of our instructors that really just dives deeply into it. And this is actually Scott McBrien, who's formerly one of our instructors who has moved into a more principal technical role. But this is an 8-minute video, really just talks about this specific service. And again, this is something that we really weren't going to build a course around, but is always really, really interesting to know. Apart from that, a lot of customers, when I have conversations with them about where to start, their first question is, I have a specific goal that I want to achieve, which course or courses will get me there. And so a lot of what we've built in these learning paths are, specifically how to get to a certification focused goal or maybe a job role specific goal. So for instance, you see here Red Hat Certified Architect classifications or Red Hat Certified System Administrator classifications. If this is the certification that you're looking for, you can click on this drop-down menu and it's going to give you a lot of suggestions for courses that you can go through. So just within this Red Hat Certified Architect drop-down, there's still going, right? There's probably 7 or 8 different certifications that would make you a Red Hat Certified Architect in cloud. But maybe you're not really interested on the certification side. You're really interested in things like, well, I'm responsible for managing all these systems at scale, right? So this is probably going to be our satellite configuration management courses, right? Kind of grouped together. Same thing later on if we talk about like a DevOps administrator, right? So I'm going to be responsible. I'm maybe the SRE that's going to be responsible for our Ansible and OpenShift deployment. Well, guess what? We've got a learning path for that group as well. And so this will not just give you direction on which courses to take, but also if there are any associated exams. Again, that's the benefit, right, of the learning subscription, is you do have the ability to take those certification exams at our kiosks anywhere in the world. Now, we touched on reporting before. It's really easy as a user to generate a report, download it as a PDF. You'll see here all the courses that I've been enrolled in. And again, all you have to do to enroll is just click on it. So you're going to see some that are 0%, right? This is a course on version 7. I probably went into it, said, oh no, I want to take it on version 8, and then just jumped right into the version 8 version. Apart from that, my lab activity, so I can see not just how many lab hours I've used, but which course or courses I've used the most hours in. So this is something a lot of times we'll work with management. If a team has mixed results in taking one of our certifications exams, we can really easily pull up, hey, well, these users who passed, looks like they all went through the course and had 40 lab hours, whereas this group that failed for the most part didn't use the lab at all. And so that's something that we can provide to the individual user or to a manager as well. And then exam activity, right? I can see which exams I've actually registered for, when I took it, and then if it's scheduled or unscheduled. Long term, we will actually build the certification checker into this as well, so you can see what status of certification you have. Okay, so that's what the learning subscription looks like. What I want to get into next really quickly is our video classroom. So this is the video classroom for our RH124 System Administration 1 course. This is one of our instructors, Ricardo DaCosta. I am not going to play it with audio on because you will fall in love with his exotic Australian / South African accent that he has. But like I said, this is something we take them in. We've got a studio. This is Ricardo, who's going to be actually explaining a task. At certain points, he'll probably reference the course material. If I skip ahead, you'll see these are some graphics that he has put up. Ricardo, you'll also notice in the bottom left corner of his screen that he has an iPad. And so throughout the course, he'll kind of go and essentially whiteboard over his iPad, specific topics, maybe explaining how a SAN works or something like that. You'll also see that it's broken down by day. So typically this is a 5-day course. So if you just wanted to keep pace with the way you would experience it inside of a classroom, you can very easily go through and say, I need to get through all of these sections within 1 day. But again, this is self-paced, right? So feel no obligation to go through on a day-by-day basis. The nice thing is, as soon as you leave, it'll remember exactly where you left off. So the next time you come back in, it will just ask you, do you want to pick up where you left off? You have access to your virtual lab environment here. I'll show that to everyone in just a second. This provides the ability to actually download that student guide, although you can access the web version of that within here as well. And this is searchable. So if you're just interested in something like System D, I can search that and at any point just jump ahead. So I know that I want to know about System D as far as listing processes. So boom, I click on that and it's going to take me right to the chapter and the point where he talks about System D. Oh, there you can see tiny Ricardo there in the bottom right with his terminal pulled up in the big screen. So next I wanted to show you what the lab environment looks like. So for every course, you're going to have a classroom environment. Every course is going to be different, right? So within this course, this is our sysadmin 3 course. It focuses on automating systems with Ansible. So we're going to have a workstation. We're going to have 4 servers that we can kind of work from. Bastion is going to have all of our Ansible files, and that's where Tower is going to live. And then the classroom system is really just sort of our secret system. That's where all the lab exercises live. That's where any files that you may need for those lab exercises live. But we're going to work within the workstation here. Before we jump into the lab, I just wanted to give you kind of a layout of what one of these courses looks like. So this is, again, our sysadmin 3 Linux automation with Ansible course. You'll see that chapter by chapter, with every section, there's going to be some kind of learning validation piece after that. So early on, you're going to get in quizzes where you're essentially matching a term to a definition, but pretty much right away, section 1.4, there's a guided exercise and you're actually going to install Ansible. And then the deeper and deeper that you get, if you get to chapter 3, you're going to be writing and running playbooks. If you're not familiar with Ansible, playbooks are essentially just scripts that do automation on any of the hosts that you're targeting. And so section 3.1 teaches you the format of how you actually write and run these playbooks. And then section 3.2, boom, you're going to be actually going through and writing some yourself. Now, the upside is, we're going to kind of guide you through, right? This is a guided exercise. It's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to give you some outcomes. So essentially, we're going to tell you what we want the end result to be, and then we're going to walk you through step by step exactly what you need to do to get to that end result, right? This is a guided exercise. We don't expect you. This isn't a sink or swim kind of situation. So typically these guided exercises are somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes, but we really want to emphasize that you are understanding the concepts you learned previously when you're going through and doing this hands-on keyboard learning. Now, you may have also noticed in that table of contents at the end of pretty much every chapter, there's going to be a lab as well. And so the lab really encompasses all of the material that's covered inside of that chapter and gives you the same kind of structured outcome, but doesn't tell you exactly how to do it, right? So this is now sort of an unguided exercise. Now, if at any point you get stuck, you have the option to show the solution, but really this is how you can best simulate mastery. This is how you can show that you have understood and retained the information that's covered throughout the chapter. And so with that, I'm going to jump into the lab, because really what I want to show is that no matter how it is that you take one of our training courses, the emphasis is going to live here inside that lab environment. So every lab has a script that you need to run to really configure and make sure that everything is good to go. So this lab is called Playbook Review. This is the end of chapter lab. And it's just going to go through and do a few checks, right? So first and foremost, in this course, we have to make sure Ansible is installed. That's going to be pretty important. And then it's going to pull down some files. So it's creating my working directory. It's deploying an inventory and configuration file inside of that. And so if I show this, I've got a couple directories that have been created from different scripts. So I've got this playbook basic directory and then playbook review. So I'll move in here. And let's see what we have. So we have that config file and inventory file that was created. And so then I would just go through and try to, go through this exercise, right? I'd create a playbook. I'd review exactly what the criteria was for me to do, right? In this case, I'm supposed to install, configure, and verify a web and database service. So that's my Apache and MariaDB services, and just making sure they're up and running. So I would go through this. I won't do that right now, but at the end, whenever I think that I'm done, I'll run the playbook. I'll do some of my testing, but the lab script will do the testing for you as well. So let's grade. And so I went through and did some of these things, but I didn't do all of the things. So here you'll see, I never installed those packages. I never ran anything on this. But what I did do was edit the firewall on those destination systems that I was going to cover. So some of the results will fail, some of them will pass. Really, the point of all this is just to demonstrate that at any point when you're validating that you've done something right or wrong, you're going to be told exactly where you passed and where you failed. And so then you could go back and really re-review the content. And we have the ability to run these scripts, these lab exercises as many times as you want, right? You'll see here that there's an option for cleaning up as well. So typically what I'll do in my preparation is go through a lab exercise, get to the point where I can pass all of these things and pass the lab altogether. I'll clean it up and then I'll do it again. And then maybe wait another day and go through and do it again. So, again, this is really where mastery happens. This is where what Malcolm Gladwell has the 10,000 hours, right? This is contributing towards that. So with that, I want to just kind of summarize everything that we've covered here, right? So we've got a lot of courses. The emphasis here is that these are all mapped to our specific courses into your specific roles. I'm sorry, with our specific products and your specific roles with those products. The goal is to raise productivity, to increase efficiency. The emphasis within the course is hands-on keyboard lab exercises. And then down the road, if certification is something that you're interested in, these certifications are also hands-on. So if you go to take one of our certification exams, you're going to be sitting at a REL system. You'll have a web browser that will have essentially 10 or 15 different things that you need to administer or develop or whatever it is the course that you're taking. And then you'll be live proctored, and then you'll be assessed on that, right? So they're very difficult certifications. If you talk to anybody, even our lowest level or most introductory certifications around system, basic system administration, they're best in class because they're so difficult. And so being able to demonstrate mastery is huge, and definitely will help set you apart. We've got a lot of ways to train. Obviously, the in-person options are not available to us now, but we talked a lot about virtual training and online learning, right? Still having the benefit of a private instructor-led training delivery, but virtual, and being able to have the same kind of hands-on experience that you would otherwise in an instructor live in-person version. And then online learning at a self-paced is another great option, right? We have our online learning option, 90 days of access to one of our courses, same hosted lab environment, everything like that, or the learning subscription, having 24/7 access to our our entire course set. It's self-paced. Take it as often as you would like to, and you get access to that entire portfolio. So with that, I want to thank everybody for your time. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out to your DLT team, and reach out to myself as well. We'd love to hear from you, and please keep training. Thanks, everyone.